I do not think that the rich people contribute more in jobs. I do not think that they even contribute in investments. And most importantly, I do not think they contribute more in tax.
That statement hits hard. It actually shows how unfair life feels when the big money stays with a few, while everyday Nigerian hustlers continue to struggle.
And President Bola Tinubu's government says they are fixing this through new tax laws. If you earn less than $600 a year, you will pay zero income tax, but the rich will pay more.
Our objective is a society where we do not tax poverty, where we do not tax capital and investment, where we do not tax the seed, but we wait for the fruit.
When we hear that from an official, it sounds good, right? Food, medicines, and school fees also stay tax-free. But watch out, if big companies pay more taxes, they might pass costs to normal consumers.
And that's why some Nigerians are nervous and skeptical about the new tax changes.
The tax law, be it for taking from the rich to favor the poor, or taking from the poor, or to balance whatever it is, all I know is going to be injurious to the poor and the middle class in particular.
And we can see that the fear is real. When prices rise or bosses hold back employment, it trickles to you first. But will new tax laws finally make the wealthy share more?
Nigerians are tired of promises. Will this tax shake-up deliver or just squeeze the everyday person harder?
Nigeria's tax reforms. Is it a fair fix or a new burden? That is the topic we are discussing today.
Hello, my name is George Okachi.
And I am Mimi Mefo Newuh. Welcome to Under the Baobab, where we make complex issues very personal.
Yes, every week we bring policymakers, politicians, and African leaders to this table, literally, to take a close look at issues shaping the continent. And please don't forget to subscribe and be part of these discussions.
This very important discussion under the Baobab. George, today we are heading back to Nigeria,
yes, definitely.
A country with just 7,200 millionaires and a handful of billionaires, according to the Henley and Partners Africa Wealth Partner Report 2025. Africa's most populous nation, which is, of course, Nigeria, has kicked off its 4 new tax laws aimed at shielding low-income earners while making big earners pay more.
Yes, Mimi, and we're talking about 139 million Nigerians who live below poverty line in 2025, that is, affecting roughly 61% of the population, and that is according to the World Bank. Most earners under, that is 800,000 naira, that is equivalent to $600
a year.
A year.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the people that this particular tax law is seeking to shield.
Right. This category pays zero income tax now, but the rich and the middle class people will face steeper bans up to 25%. That's not all. Basic food like basics like food, medicines, yeah, and school fees will also be VAT free, VAT free. So the law actually came into effect this 1st of January,
they started implementing
2026, right?
Yes, and those are very huge numbers. They seem complicated, and to help us dissect this topic, we are pleased to speak to Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. He is the chairperson of Nigeria's Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Mr. Oyedele is also an economist and an accountant.
And it's not always complicated when we have the right person to, dissect the topic for us, like George said.
Yes.
So before we get into what Mr. Oyedele actually told us, I think it's important to sit with the scale of the issue here. Nigeria is not a poor country.
Definitely
we know
not.
that, it's
Definitely
Africa's most populous
yes.
Nation. This, to me, means what exists is deeply an unequal one. So we are talking about inequality here. You have private jets and gated estates on one end, and also people who are choosing between food and transport on the other end, while the new tax laws at about 4% levy on big company profits to fund development. So we are seeing people trying to just leave, while we have some part of, or some people in Nigeria living very, very big, but these people living big are actually not paying tax.
Yes, and that is what these particular ambitious, tax reforms is supposed to cure, according to President Bola Tinubu's government.
Right. That was the first question that I had to put to our guest, Mr. Oyedele. I was very straightforward with this question, asking him, do Nigeria's richest people actually contribute enough when it comes to tax in the country?
So just to be clear, for the tax laws in Nigeria, you pay your taxes based on your income. If you are going to be tracing assets of trusts, of shares, of property, of bank accounts across the world, that is not going to be an easy exercise. Nigeria has already signed up for the Common Reporting Standard with more than 100 countries. So we're going to be getting data. We're already getting some. We'll share with them as well. So trying to get, beneficial ownership, asset of individuals is a process. We're doing significant reforms. We can't put all of that on hold and start tracing assets of individuals. It will happen over time as informations come in.
So how are you planning to effectively tax the wealth of billionaires? And which country on the continent are you looking as an example?
Nigeria does not have a wealth tax, right? We don't have a wealth tax. We don't have even inheritance tax. So we do not tax wealth in Nigeria. So therefore, it is not a priority to establish the wealth of individuals. The taxes we have in Nigeria is income tax. So therefore, we are prioritizing trying to establish the income of individuals. Based on the reform that we are conducting, we estimate that the top 2% of our population owns sufficient income to be able to pay taxes at the highest band, which is 25%. So that is what we are prioritizing.
So how is this income tax that Nigeria is implementing affecting the common man? I mean, the poorer people, so to speak, in Nigeria?
So the new tax reform provides exemption for low-income earners, so they are exempted. Middle-income earners have a reduction in their tax rates, so they pay less taxes. And then our expectation is that our tax to GDP ratio would increase from around 10% to 18% over the next 3 years. And then improve accountability and transparency would mean that those resources will be spent on infrastructure, on education, on healthcare, and human capital development generally. That's how the common person would benefit.
So can you tell us about the reform that you've put in place? How are the billionaires, the wealthy people in the country reacting to it?
Different reaction from billionaires and millionaires and the ordinary persons. If you conduct any tax reform anywhere in the world, you generally have reaction from everyone. Of course, people will react based on what's most important to them. So you find the small businesses are more concerned about levies at the local level, whereas you may find that the big-time investors are more concerned about taxes on shares in the capital market and fixed income securities. So for us, our approach has not been about billionaires versus the rest of the population. Rather, it has been about the critical stakeholders. Are they manufacturers? Are they farmers? Are they in financial services? Are they small businesses? Are they women? Are they people with disability? This is the approach we have adopted.
So our guest Oyedele is making it very clear that Nigeria is not taxing wealth, it's taxing income.
Yes.
If you have a salary, if you have business that is registered, as soon as you have the profits, it's automatically deducted.
Yeah, considered to be generating income.
But someone making money through assets, property, shares, offshore holdings may sometimes pay very little tax under the new Nigerian Tax Administration Act rules, which is to me not very fair.
Yeah, you have to be clever to evade taxes, Mimian, and that is something that happens.
But that's criminal.
Yeah, it could be, you could consider it criminal, but some call it clever. But it is unfair if you look at it by all manner of description.
Right.
Because the government generally cannot survive without taxes. If you're saying that there are some people who decide that to declare that I'm earning zero income, and if you look at their lifestyle, that is not a reflection of what they're saying. How are they able to actually manage to live without even paying the taxes?
Good question, and it actually also creates this, this frustration amongst people in Nigeria, not just Nigeria, but also elsewhere. When you feel like you're working day and night, teaching somewhere, and earning that salary that you have to pay part of it as tax, but there's someone really earning a lot of money but not paying taxes. But let us hear what Nigerians themselves they think about this whole issue of tax, whether it's equal or not. Nigerians on the streets, some of them were speaking to our correspondent Abiodun Jamiu. Let us hear what they think about this new tax system.
I do not think that the rich people contribute more in jobs. I do not think that they even contribute in investments. And most importantly, I do not think they contribute more in tax. You see, currently, most Nigerian investors, most Nigerian big men actually have most of their businesses outside the country, and they're not really taxed.
We are already being taxed. You and I knows that if any transaction above 10,000 naira, 50 naira is completely off. You don't even know where that 50 naira is going. Then not to talk of the other charges that are being accrued on it. So if I want to give you 20,000 naira to send to my mother in the village, invariably I'll have to send 20,500 before 20,000 naira can reach my mother in the village, if not even more than. Because if for those of us that operate zero account, you send 10,000 naira to me, now what will be in my account will not be 10,000 naira again. So the tax law, be it for taking from the rich to favor the poor, or taking from the poor, or to balance whatever it is, all I know is going to be injurious to the poor and the middle class in particular.
You cannot enforce or you cannot tax poverty. So it means that you are crushing them down, you are limiting their savings, which eventually turn to investment. So definitely, the poor should also contribute to the economy, to the society. But then there is this much responsibility on the rich because they have the financial capability.
So I think the poor people pay tax more than the rich because we, the poor people, we only know our own people by on our own self because you go out to hustle on your own, but on still, the revenue people will come around asking you, bring ticket for you, you now pay your own tax. But the rich people, for their own higher level, depend on their own standards. They know who they can call. But for we, the lower masses, we don't know who we can call.
You know, listening to those voices, one thing is clear. People don't just feel, overtaxed. They are feeling unseen. They are feeling that perhaps there are some people who should be paying more, and yet the government is not, enhancing compliance to ensure that these people, give to the society in a commensurate level as to what they are earning or according to their assets or their wealth.
Yeah, we also heard that other person really breaking it down that if you're sending maybe 10,000 francs, it will end up being, the person would not receive that exact amount of money because they are taxed.
Yes.
That is quite dangerous for a country's survival because when citizens feel exploited rather than served, taxes stop being a civic duty and start feeling like punishment. So in the case of Nigeria, even small traders now get exemptions. They will still feel, even if they get exemptions, even if they are not taxed enough, they will still feel like they are being, they are being cheated. They'll be skeptical about it.
Yeah, and Mimi, this is not a discussion just unique to Nigeria. We're talking about other African nations also, where we have citizens who are very skeptical about, new tax changes that are, taking effect to the country. But remember, Mimi, countries cannot, live or rather drive their ambitions, their social contracts without taxes. But the problem is if the government is weak in terms of compliance and there is no sort of like equity being seen by those people who are expected to pay the taxes, then it defeats the logic why you even are ambitious to want to change the tax laws.
You've said it. Equity,
yes.
What I would say equality, but business people call it equity, is very important when it comes to revenue collection. So a tax system doesn't just raise money, it signals whose life matters, how much the rich is paying and how much the middle income earners are paying is very important.
Yes.
As well, so that the middle income earners or even the poor, I don't always like to say people are poor, but those who are not earning enough
Those
will
who are
not
not
feel,
advantaged.
who are
Yes.
not advantaged, will
Yes.
not feel like they are being cheated.
Yeah, exactly. And just back to the Nigerian, tax reforms, we're told that now the rich and companies that are making enough will be the ones who will be paying much. But there is a feeling, and as you've heard from one of the people we've spoken to from Nigeria, that if the rich feel like, yeah, we are paying more, there is a likelihood that they will transfer that into the products they're churning out in the economy, and that means that essentially prices will go up.
Yeah, so it's a tricky one.
Yes.
But it's also a question that I put to our guests to really find out on whether taxing high net individuals risk capital flight, especially with non-residents now remitting VAT on digital goods. Let us hear what he told us.
Yeah, so because we are not taxing their wealth, I don't see any reason why they will need to move their wealth if the wealth is not the target of the taxes. It's the income. And for many of the high net worth individuals who have assets generating income, you really can't move them, right? If you have properties and you're collecting rental, if you have a company and your customer base is in Nigeria, how do you move that? So we do not see any risk of any Nigerian, including the high net worth individuals, wanting to move location because of the tax reform. By the way, our tax reform makes Nigeria very competitive. The rates are not too high. The top rate for individuals is 25%. That's lower than you find in many countries across the world, including in Africa.
How will you be able to ensure that there's equality between the billionaires and the middle income earners in Nigeria, and that there's no discrimination?
Yeah, we don't say it's equality. We say it's equity. And what that means is the tax system has been designed to be progressive, and people pay according to their ability. So that's why I said to you that low-income earners are exempted from personal income tax. Middle-income earners have a tax cut, so they pay less, and high-income earners pay more. So that's equity. And the system is such that we are able to determine your income. Of course, you have to make self-declaration, and then there's a system validation to determine whether you have declared correctly or not. And then you pay your tax based on the rate that is, like in many parts of the world, you have the tax band of rates, and then you have the income band that determines how much you pay effectively at the end of the day.
If the government of Nigeria did not help the wealthy people gain their wealth, do the rich still owe the society or the government itself any financial responsibility, like paying back through tax or wealth tax?
Yeah, but it should not be right to say the government has not helped the billionaires or the high net worth individuals to make their wealth. How do you create wealth? You create wealth by having the ability to provide services, to supply goods, or generally to create value that is needed by the people. So if your customer base is Nigeria and you're selling goods and services and you're making money, it has to be that government has a role to play. It may not be perfect, but government, of course, provides the roads, government provides the electricity infrastructure, government provides the telecommunication infrastructure, provides the regulation. So we all, as citizens, want our government to do more, but it would be incorrect to say that the government has not contributed to their ability to create wealth.
So basically what Taiwo is saying is that these new tax changes and these reforms are really conducive for even the business people, and that no business person or wealthy person will run away from Nigeria because of, excessive taxation.
Right. So it's something that also reframes the debate that we have been having.
Yes.
It's not about punishing success. It's about recognizing that wealth doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So it's built within a society where there are laws in place, there are roads also, there are courts, there's security and consumers. Now with clearer rules on gas investment incentives or, policies that are in place.
Yes.
I'm just wondering how the rich can be able to, because when he's speaking, he's saying, okay, the wealthy in Nigeria also benefit because you cannot say that they created wealth on their own by themselves.
Yes. We've seen there could be a pushback from the wealthy in Nigeria now who feel like, maybe this will be, punitive to me and punitive to my business per se, because in any case, your overhead costs increase as a business person, you look at how you can, maybe survive within that, scope. But maybe we're talking about inequality.
Yes.
In taxation. And we've stressed the point that this is not only unique to Nigeria. In Cameroon, where you come from, I'm sure there are people who feel like there are some people within the society who should be paying more. They are more advantaged and therefore they should be paying more and cushion us, people who are not, so advantaged.
Which is one of the reasons why you see someone would create a business in a country like Cameroon or even Nigeria, for instance, and after 6 months or 1 year, the business is no longer existing because of the tax systems that are in place. There's also been a lot of studies showing that businesses barely survive after a year of existence. So it brings us to that whole debate of equity, like we were hearing from Mr. Oyedele. He made the point very clear that, low-income earners are exempted when it comes to the tax, while high-income earners earn more on paper. And is progressive. I insist on paper.
Yes, and that is what we've heard from the Nigerians we spoke to. They are skeptical. They are saying, like, on paper, it sounds promising, but we've been promised more than enough. And I mean, implementation will be key to the success to these particular laws that Nigeria has ambitiously rolled out from beginning of this January. And Nigerians will judge this reform by whether their daily lives actually improve, like faster VAT refunds or no harassment for small businesses.
Right. And another critical point that we raised was borrowing. Nigeria borrows heavily for power, for health, education, and so many other things. And many Nigerians are asking, if we task wealthier people more or collected digital VAT properly, would we still need this level of debt? Even last year we're talking about Nigerian government borrowing, even the Senate also borrowing. This is what our guest told us about the huge debt burden that Nigeria is having at the moment.
So the average tax to GDP ratio for Africa is about 16%. For Nigeria, we are targeting 18% tax to GDP ratio. So if you look at the GDP of Africa and you extrapolate and say maybe Africa gets to about 20% of tax to GDP ratio, then you're looking at about $500 billion to $600 billion revenue from taxes for Africa. For Nigeria, our target is to get to about 18% of tax to GDP ratio. So that should be able to generate in the region of $40 billion for Nigeria.
Okay, so Nigeria frequently borrows from the World Bank for energy, healthcare, education, and economic stability. What would you still need, or would you still need to borrow this much if there was enough collaboration with Nigeria's millionaires and billionaires?
Yeah, borrowing has to always be put in context. And so America is the largest economy in the world and also has the highest amount of borrowing. So every country, including China, including Singapore, including the UK, have borrowings. Japan has over 200% of debt to GDP ratio. I'm not saying we need to borrow more. I'm saying that borrowing is not a problem for any economy. What is important is the application of the borrowing to be able to create wealth and to make sure that the debt is self-financing over time. And those are the framework that we're currently working on to make the process of debt sustainability to be better than it has been before. It doesn't take away the fact that you need to collect more taxes appropriately. But there's no country, France collects over 40% of tax to GDP ratio in taxes, and they're struggling to meet public financial expenses. So it's always an ongoing process for every government to collect taxes efficiently, borrow responsibly, and utilize that for the benefit of society.
Time to lighten the mood. a little bit.
Definitely. Under the baobab, we normally retreat, and it is at this level that we try to get to know Mr. Oyedele when he is not talking figures and economy and business.
Okay, so would you prefer Lagos or Abuja?
I have no preference. I live in both Abuja and Lagos, so I'm fine with either of the two.
Okay, so will you prefer suya at midnight or shawarma at lunch?
I'll say suya.
Okay, so who should fix Nigeria? The rich or the state?
It's everyone. It cannot be done by one party alone. Everyone has to work together.
Right. Would you prefer football match or a quiet night with a book?
Football.
Football. Afrobeat or old school high life?
Old school high life.
Okay, so do you prefer to lose your phone for a week or lose your wallet for one day?
None of that.
Okay, be famous but broke or rich but unknown?
Yeah, I don't even know whether I have any preference between whether I'm rich and not known or whether I'm famous. I'd rather be known for the right thing, solving society's problem.
And describe Nigerian billionaires using one word.
I don't know what word to use. I don't think Nigerian billionaires are different from billionaires anywhere in the world. I would say they're resilient.
Yeah, they are resilient, of course. And Mimi, at the during the interview, you did ask about the debt question in Nigeria, and there is a way debt and taxes are always intertwined,
Right.
because the government raises money through taxation, and the deficit is always breached by the debt that they borrow from international lenders. And since President Bola Tinubu took office in May, that is 2023, Nigeria's debt has climbed sharply. By mid-2025, total public debt had crossed 152 trillion naira, which is 106.6 billion US dollars.
Right.
But the new tax reforms aim to cut borrowing reliance.
Which is a big part of that increase comes from fresh borrowing, both at home and abroad. Nigeria has taken in billions of dollars in a new loan from the World Bank alongside heavy domestic borrowing, even though the government is saying that it's trying to boost revenue via the Nigeria Revenue Service, which is a service that is still new in the country.
Yes, but now, how would taxes help Nigeria reduce, the borrowing?
Not just that, what if the country did not borrow at all? And what if billionaires were actually being, asked to pay tax, whether it is income or wealth or whatever? If billionaires were supposed to pay taxes in Nigeria, how is the economy going to look like? That is a question that we also put to our guests.
I already mentioned that to you to say in the next 3 years, we want to get to 18% of tax to GDP ratio, but beyond the headline tax revenue collection, our objective is a society where we do not tax poverty, where we do not tax capital and investments, where we do not tax the seed, but we wait for the fruit, where we can provide social infrastructure, where we can provide human capital development, using the tax revenue and other revenue that we generate, which then speaks to the social contract. When the social contract is working, it means that whatever revenue that we generate from tax and non-tax sources are used for the purpose of the people to make sure that at the end of the day, there's shared prosperity.
Interesting.
Yeah, indeed, and that is an aspiration, I should say. But whether it works, it's a matter of wait and see. They just rolled out the new reforms starting January 2026.
Right, as long as it benefits the citizens.
Yeah, definitely. And at the heart of this conversation is a powerful idea that taxation should not crush poverty, discourage investment, or punish ambitions.
Very important, but it must also reflect reality. Nigeria cannot build schools, hospitals, or stability if wealth continues to grow at the top while the base carries hidden costs from business pass-throughs.
And if the tax system hits people before they can meet basic needs, you're not building a nation. You are extracting from, desperation. And that's how resentment normally grows in different countries.
Yeah, frustration. So the real challenge becomes balance. How do you design a system where the poorest are protected, investments are encouraged, but wealth still continues fairly or contributes fairly to the common good of the nation?
And definitely that is very pertinent. And these are important conversations that we have under the baobab, explaining laws like how effective is zero taxation for Nigerians earning under 800,000 naira or VAT on foreign streaming.
Exactly. These are the conversations that you care about. Honest, uncomfortable, but very, very necessary. How do you watch Under the Baobab? You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, DW Africa, or you can also watch Under the Baobab
on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as we continue to slow down, ask harder questions, and put power under the microscope. My name is George Okachi. Until next time.
My name is Mefo. Goodbye.